right before Old Annetta. Pretty much a Lido. Some parts of it by the feedlot. And they have an Alito diner. A small little diner here. In case they don't do breakfast. And that's the little town of Alito back there. Right next to an old mill. Don't know a whole lot about Alito. All these towns have a story. I'm sure there's people that call it Leto. Some Super Duty guy with a smart horn. Well, the idea is like he's right there in that Super Duty. He's already stopping right now. So I always do this, and I come across when people are in a super hurry, and I kind of keep my distance in this because you don't really know exactly what's going on. But he, you know, he's speeding around this way, and now he's already stopped. So it doesn't do him a lot of good to get that advantage of, I don't know, really, there, you know, that was just him being rude, you know. And that's the problem. That's kind of an example of the problem with our country. You know, someone may be toting something, you know, even if they're in an economy-sized car. Look, I don't go to my dad or any family members. Well, I don't go to my dad and ask him, hey dad, where's my Super Duty truck? And a lot of times fathers will buy a whole house for their son and when he marries his beloved wife as a present, as a wedding present. It happens every day. The father will buy him a whole house. You know, the whole house is paid for, including the taxes. The father says, you know, I'd love to be that kind of father and hope to be that father to my son. But I don't have to put them through some rigmarole, government horrific, you know, nightmare so that they can just get ahead in the world. You know, they find the one that they love, and I hope to be able to buy him his own house and property. I would feel good to know that I could do that. You know, I would live in a smaller place just to be able to buy my son his home and his property so that they're safe. They have what they need for their marriage, and work is not everything to the marriage, you know. That would make me feel pretty good. But that's, listen, has not happened in my life. A person, especially a young man that's wanting to marry, should be able to have his own home and property and not have to worry about all of this mess, you know. You shouldn't torture your children, you know. So I hope that God, through this channel and through what I'm doing in YouTube, provides me a way to be able to buy my son a home and property for his for his marriage when that time comes, you know, which would be anywhere between 10 or 15 years from now. Anything could happen in 10 years, you know. I could be a multi-billionaire in 10 years, easily. It could happen. It could easily happen. And I hope that I'm able to do that. Because I'd love to look at my son and say, David, here's your home. Here's your property. Invite whoever you want over to celebrate your marriage. And, you know, keep it well among you, you know. It's there for your protection. Yes, there's a world out there, and it's not a very nice one. Here's the gate that we've built. You know, here's the free Wi-Fi, you know, that kind of thing. I would like to be able to do that. That would make me happy. And then I say, son, just allow me to come over every once in a while and visit. You know, have me over for Thanksgiving or something like that. I wish there could be peace in my family, but there just can't. And that's just the way it is. That's the way it went down. And I can learn to deal with that. I love filmmaking. I love videos. I love watching other people's videos, or I love watching other people's movies. Like I'd love to see The Fabelmans. You know, you got a young kid that had to deal with Semitism, you know, or anti-Semitism. We had to deal with Semitism too, but anti-Semitism to a point where he got beat up, and I got beat up too. But I was raised Christian. A Christian child should not be getting beat up, but I did. I got beat up a few times for just, you know, I was living in a wealthy household. They felt like I needed the shit kicked out of me, and then it happened. And I know it happened to Spielberg because he's about to win an Oscar for it. Hopefully. It's a horrible thing in any form. You know, religion beside the point. It's a horrible thing of bullying another person. It's horrible because they learn it in their mind to kind of take it. And they got to the point where they're assertive. They're assertive with what they do, you know. And parents teach that to their children. But, you know, parents can bully. I don't know what went down in Fabelmans. I don't know, but it seems similar. My parents got the divorce at 9 years old. And there's a sense of bulliness because of what happens in that. Whether the parents are willing to fess up to it or not. Because the parents could keep it together for the kids. They could. But it doesn't always work that way. It's a very nightmarish thing, and I could see a young kid falling into the dream of filmmaking. I see a young kid doing that, and over again. I see it north. We gotta go north this way because it relieves the pain. The dream does. The dream relieves the pain, and I hope to get to see Fabelmans. I really don't need to see it. I'd like to see it, but I don't have to see it. And you know, it's sad that people draw lines and create enemies. And I hope that the Christian community and the Jewish community can learn to shake hands and be reasonable, because that's what God would want us to do. You know, rather than just choosing sides, just put the sides over there, you know, just because we're all going to have to get along. And we did during World War II, and we will in the future. And that goes for all the religions, I hope, you know, I hope. Because listen, if we just call it kindness, we'll be okay. Because there is no law against kindness. If we can just be kind, then that's what God expects from us, you know. If we can learn just to be kind, which is so hard to do. It's like that song, it's so hard to be kind. We made it back to the Home Depot. This is a big order. I hope she still has it for me. I'm gonna put it mostly in probably the back seat, and then we'll drop it off and go forth, as they say. I usually say go forth because I don't know what my plans are gonna be other than going forth. All right. one last thing. Here's a clue on Roadie. It says 5 miles right here. Usually if it's within 5, maybe 7 miles or so, that means you're not going to the other pickup point, whatever. But in this last case, I was going all the way from Burleson to Aledo, so that one would have been long anyway. But usually they should be about 5 miles or maybe 10 miles. It can change with the Roadie. So Roadie, you have, like I say, you have to stay on top of it and make sure that that's the right drop-off point, because it's frustrating if it's not. Saint Laurent. I'll take a little coffee break or water break or whatever. That's where you grind it up right here. Right, so I don't know how much I made with Roadie. I haven't really looked at it. It takes time before it gives you that information. But we switched back over to Runner, and I'm headed to the original Pancake house. And Linda worked there for a little stint. And it's pretty nice. It's pretty nice inside. It's kind of like IHOP, but it's got original flair to it, because it's called the original House of Pancakes. So we're going there. I sure hope you're not watching all my vlogs. If you are, then congratulations, you really like my channel. I do like 6 vlogs a day. I hope it inspires you to at least do 1 vlog, or 1 post, 1 video. I hope it does. Sometimes I do 10 videos a day. Hope you like them. Saying since 1953 right here.
It's gonna be 8:11 right here.
Not everyone is going to pick up their smartphone and start creating a channel on YouTube. Not everyone's going to do that. It's not for everyone. I love doing it. I remember I used to watch Netflix, and there's a guy named James Noctway. He's a war photographer. He goes over to the Middle East, or he used to, and he would bring back, I mean, thousands of photos in these little 35 millimeter canisters. And he lost one of the journalists that worked with him. He was shot and killed right in front of him. He'd seen people executed right in front of him. But he knew how to approach people. And in a way, with his eyes, he would ask permission for the photo. And they would understand what he was trying to do. He has been in many combat situations. He's been mustard gassed, or I don't know if it was real mustard gas. It was probably what's called tear gas, but versions of it, where he'd have to wear like a rag around his face to keep the tear gas from making him pass out or whatever. And he's even begged for other people's lives when they were to be executed. He begged to let them live, and then he still photographed it. I think he probably, to a certain degree, did care about his safety. Why he knew that he could do what he did and then come back to New York City and put on these studios and show all these photos that will be in many museums and in many books and published for hundreds of years. It'll go down in history. He'll go down in history as one of the greatest photographers of all time. Why his buddy was killed and he wasn't, he probably doesn't have an answer for that. But it could be in his behavior. It could be in his swift movements and the way that he is, because he uses the camera, like, he's moving the camera throughout the entire time in a very swift way. And he moves out of the way where the rocks are being thrown or the bullets are flying and everything. He started off in New York City doing like journalism. So he'd be there before the police would arrive and take the photos of the crime scene, and the police would be coming in to the crime scene, and he'd be getting the police as part of the art, as part of the photography. And they all knew who he was. He had a press pass for New York City. Bert Chavez did too, but he didn't go to that level. It wasn't his passion, so he became a beekeeper. James Noctway stayed as a photographer and is famous for it because he didn't stop doing it. How he ended up in war zones and all of that, it may have been a financial thing, I don't know. It could be something, he could be a peace activist, I don't know why he would go to that level. But the danger in what he did was evident because his buddy that went with him was killed. And that's been documented. There's a documentary about him on Netflix. I don't know if it's still floating around. It's probably Amazon too. You can get it on Amazon. It could have been something that got my attention along the way, because he's a filmmaker, but he's not the filmmaker like, Scorsese. He's not a filmmaker where he's making like narrative Hollywood movies. He probably could, but he's doing photography, so there's still film involved. These are like 35 millimeter cameras and stuff. And then eventually his buddy that was killed had a video camera, which I think could possibly have slowed him down a little bit. Because back then the video cameras were clunky. They were you could see them. They were you put them on your shoulder. And they traveled a lot around with moped and stuff like that. They weren't traveling like in a tank or anything. These guys were fearless. They'll do a movie about them, probably a narrative. They did one called The Bang Bang Club, which may have been based a little bit on him. And then they did a great documentary about him, about James Noctway. Check him out. A little bit about James Noctway. He was also awarded some awards for photography and many high acclaim, and he worked for Time magazine. But he seemed, from my point of view, from seeing the documentaries, he kind of was in like a blind zone, or he would kind of like almost be like invisible, where you couldn't really see him, but he was getting all the photography while the grenades are being thrown and the bullets fly. Yeah, there's probably, to my opinion, he's like the Evel Knievel of all of this, I mean, Evel Knievel was crazy. I mean, he jumping, a tremendous amount of lengths in the air and all over all these cars and just this craziness and fire and all this stuff. But, there's probably some other photographers out there that are unheard of. But he was very good at being kind of invisible. But he was also, what I thought he was good at, was he was good at kind of asking permission for the photo without getting through all the rigmarole, But the drama that he would come across is nothing compared to most photographers. And the Vietnam War must have had an effect on him, you know, because we don't have a war that was televised the way that the Vietnam War was. But he mostly, I think he's in Middle East, probably Afghan. I have to go back and rewatch that documentary. I should own it. I should buy it. I wouldn't probably attempt anything like that in a million years. And the guy, the videographer that went with him was pretty stupid. Why he let him go, I don't know. And he probably, you know, he's 74 years old now, but he probably wears a burden from that death. It was a young kid, great filmmaker he would have been, probably worked for CNN. Definitely, you know, I don't know if Noctway would work for CNN. He worked for Time Magazine. He mostly did art style, black and white photos. He also did color, but he did, it was artful. It was artful work. I think he was going for the art. He was, you know, like a filmmaker goes over, like how Coppola went over to the Philippines during the Civil War and was trying to get Apocalypse Now. He really wanted to go to Vietnam, and they thought he would get killed. He probably would have. Noctway was doing this for the art, I think. I don't think he was doing it only for the journalism, although I think a lot of it ended up in Time Magazine and journalism. So part of it was journalism, but when you look at the photography, you're like, this guy's setting up shots. It's war zone. He's trying to get the right angle. He's getting the photography just completely deadly, you know. And some are against that, you know. It's exciting. It's an exciting documentary. James Noctway. I highly recommend it. Right, last little point on documentary. It's called War Photographer. It is about James Noctway. It is directed by Christian Fry, and it was done in 2001. Do yourself a favor and get educated. Find out really what photography, the height and the depth and the risk and just the drama and the trauma and just the exhaustion of what this guy, for whatever reason, completely went through.